I realized, like I had this line and it was like, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? I wanted to be happy and I wasn't. I think I kind of woke up to the fact that no one was going to save me. No one was going to do the work for me. And in order for me to live the life that I really deeply felt that I was meant to live, it was going to require serious change.
Welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shay Invidiata. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multifaceted impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in. On the other side of her own health journey, she lost 130 pounds and overcame depression and panic disorder. She made a bold decision to quit her successful career in commercial real estate to shift into the wellness industry full-time in 2022. Tanya Kololian is a heart-led entrepreneur. She builds businesses that support others in optimizing their health so they can optimize their lives. Tanya is the co-founder and CEO of Trove Wellness Inc., Toronto's newest wellness landmark, opening its doors this fall in 2023. She is also the co-founder of Plunge Nosara, a cold plunge studio in Costa Rica, and the CEO of Tanya Kololian Coaching, where she facilitates powerful transformation for her clients. We've had many beach walks and kitchen counter combos where I turn to her and say, why are we not recording this? Because the conversation is so good. Well, today on the Freedom CEO podcast, my dear friend, Tanya Kololian, and my house partner in Costa Rica is on, and we are officially recording. So my babe, welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast.
Thank you. It is it's so exciting to be here officially. To your point, we've had some amazing conversations non-recorded in the background. So I'm excited to see what comes through on here today.
Me too. Okay, guys. And like full disclosure, usually when I have somebody come on, I do like a basic outline of things I want to cover, interesting bits that maybe we can pull out to add value to you. But today, and we're going to dive into this story with Tanya, who I also call T. So as we're talking, if I call her T, still talking to Tanya. There's so much that's happened in your life. You're such an inspirational human, one that I've not known for that long. We're really on a year and a half, but I feel like I've known you for a solid 20 years of my life. You've taught me so much. You've held me through so much. We laugh together, we cry together, all of the things. And I'm like, how do you write an outline for that? And so I just want this to be raw. I want it to be real. And naturally, through your story, I feel like we're just going to hit so many good things. But this is really sitting in a family room conversation. T and I are actually bringing you into our kitchens today. So even as we're talking to you, like if you want to pivot and go somewhere else in the combo, be like, let's just do that. Cool?
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So we could spend the rest of our time today together just talking about like the last 2 years of your life. And a lot of that I think is going to lead us up to where you are today, what you have going on, and how you're helping people transform their lives. But let's go back, like pre the T that I know, because you've got an incredible transformation journey of your own self, personally, physically, and also mentally. So let's start there.
Sure. So I'll take you back to 2014. In 2014, I was medicated for depression and panic disorder. I was somewhere between my heaviest weight of 296 pounds. I had lost a bunch of weight And in 2014, I was on my way back to gaining all of the weight that I had lost. So I was incredibly overweight and uncomfortable in my body. I was depressed. I was in a career that was not entirely fulfilling. At that time, I was a teacher and I loved kids, but the education system wasn't the place that I wanted to be. And so I was just navigating a lot of physical changes, mental changes, and I wasn't, as I said, in a place that felt entirely fulfilling. I was introduced to a program called Landmark, which I think you're familiar with. And Landmark was my introduction into the personal development and personal growth world. And this 3-day course sort of blew me wide open. And it was the beginning of me taking radical responsibility for my own life and where I was at in my life. Leading up to that moment, pre-Landmark, I very much approached life from a place of having a victim mentality. I believe that things were happening to me. And I believe that everything that I was experiencing was a result of other people's actions. And Landmark was the beginning of me taking responsibility for my life and really acknowledging where I was and owning that the decisions that I had previously made were why I was living the life that I was living in that moment. And that was the beginning of the change that followed. And so it was, meaningful change sometimes takes time. In my case, it took a few years. And that was the beginning of an eventual 130-pound weight loss journey, getting myself entirely off my medication, overcoming depression and panic disorder, moving careers multiple times between then and now. And now I'm an entrepreneur in the health and wellness space. And it is truly my life's work and such a privilege to be able to share what I've learned through my own journey with others and help bring them along for their own transformations.
It's so powerful, so inspiring hearing just everything that you've overcome in that part of your life. You talk about radical ownership and taking radical responsibility over how your life was going then. Sometimes I think this word or that phrase gets thrown around and it's well, what does that even really mean? There's also, I think about 10Xing, and there's even actually a book by Dan Sullivan called 10X is easier than 2X, meaning to do something bigger that actually can sound more scary and seem harder to actually accomplish. Oftentimes is easier when you jump into this radical, and I'm going to come to you to ask what that looks like versus trying to lose that 10 pounds, right? And I mean, it's also a good analogy because we're talking about weight as part of, this catalyst to your journey where you sit today, where trying to lose that 10 pounds versus maybe losing 60 pounds or 100 pounds. But radical through what you went through does not mean that it was easy. And so for you, what did radical ownership look like?
Well, it meant being really honest with myself. And I really, like I said, I was at a place where, I was blaming my weight on being the victim of really challenging relationships in my life and things that had happened to me to get to that place.
Right.
And I realized, I had this line and it was do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? And I wanted to be happy and I wasn't. And I think I kind of woke up to the fact that no one was going to save me and no one was going to do the work for me. And in order for me to live the life that I really deeply felt that I was meant to live, it was going to require serious change. And the change started with my physical body and my, taking myself from a place of being very mentally unwell to a place of mental wellness. And it really was I had to get so honest and I had to really flip my life upside down. And so I think that's the point that you're trying to make here is it was easier to flip my life entirely upside down and create a blank canvas and really start asking myself the question of what am I willing to do in order to have the life that I want to have? Because I think, and simultaneously, what am I willing to not do? Yes. I think when we ask, ourselves and other people the question of what do you want? It's a lot of similarities across the board. We all want more money. We all want time freedom. We all want healthier bodies. We all want epic relationships. And it's okay, but what are you willing to do in order to have the body that you want? What are you willing to do in order to have the relationship that you want? And it requires sacrifice, and it requires being so committed to your yes, that your big yes, that you're willing to say no along the way, even to things and people and places that you really want to be in and part of.
Which you're doing this in real time as we speak, right? If you follow Tanya on Instagram, which if you don't, make sure you connect with her. Everything's in the show notes. And if you're watching, you can see that it's come up on the screen. You were supposed to be at a wedding this weekend and you decided to not go. Walk us through that.
Oh, this is a big one for me. This is, I think this shift here is the exact shift that has allowed me to build the life that I'm currently building and living. And when I really think about what allowed for my change, it's the fact that, as I said, like I started saying no along the way in order to say yes to my bigger yes. Mm-hmm. So I'm in a season right now where I am continuously bumping up against my own edges and, pushing my capacity for more. And in that process of bumping up against my edges, there's a lot of discomfort. And it's, I choose the discomfort because, as we know, we don't grow in our comfort zones. And so I'm a very goal-oriented and driven person. And so I like to set goals in different areas of my life. And in this moment, I had a relationship goal and I'm in the process of exploring new relationships. I have a business goal for my own Transformation by TKO program that I just launched on my TKO coaching platform. I'm building Trove. And in the physical realm of my life right now, I'm training for a half marathon. And, like weight loss and like building businesses, things don't happen overnight. And so we need training plans and programs. And in this moment, I'm just less than 3 weeks away from running my first half marathon. And I committed to this goal because it was a serious reach goal for me. And it's less about the finish line the day of, and for me, much more about the process of becoming who I want to be. And the training process, has allowed me to become a version of myself that I didn't get to experience and wasn't before this.
Totally.
And being at a wedding in Cape Cod this weekend conflicted with my training plan. And I was on a bachelorette in Mexico City at the beginning of September. And it was one of those moments where it was like, I'm going to show up for my friend and I'm going to do this thing. And it was a reminder for me that in the process of saying yes to somebody else, I said no to myself, and I put myself what felt like 4 or 5 weeks behind on my training program. And so it was an opportunity to learn the lesson from that moment, recommit, and adjust the course going forward. And so for me, that meant this weekend was a quiet weekend of rest and recovery leading up to my longest run yet. And in the process, it means, short-term sacrifices for long-term gains.
I love it. And I was talking about this the other day. It is so important to understand and know and be clear on what your vision is. Because if you don't have a vision, not as a CEO, which you are, and we are going to talk about Trove today as well, it's not about being a CEO or being in business, but really actually being the CEO of your life. Like if you don't know what your vision is for your life, it is hard to know what to say yes or no to. And it's very aimlessly that you're walking around because you have no direction. And so you find yourself saying yes to all kinds of things. You don't know why you're saying yes to them. And therefore, you eventually, time passes and you look back and you're like, how did I get here? How am I living a life that I didn't choose? How am I living a life I didn't want? I had this other idea, and having an idea is very different than actually creating a vision and actually holding that vision, And so the importance of being really clear on what it is you want, and it makes it simple, not easy, to say no to things that aren't in alignment with that vision. But you hold that confidence going, I'm going to live vicariously through you, everybody on Instagram for that wedding, because I'm not there, but like how empowered and how much like your nervous system as well, feeling at ease that you were out running on the weekend, because that was the aligned yes to this vision that you're holding for yourself, because you're very clear on knowing what you're wanting to accomplish and what you're building.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is coming up for me as you're saying all of these things is how deep my people-pleasing paradigm was. And so who I was to so many people in their lives was the yes person. So I was the default, I was the first phone call. I was so fun. I was game for anything all the time. And because I wasn't in a position where I was prioritizing or taking care of my own physical or mental health, I was like, you want to go for drinks? No problem. You want to go do this? No problem. Whatever you want, whenever you want, I'm down. And so it's been really in asking myself, and to your point, connecting deeply to the vision for my life of how do I want to spend my time here? Like, and what do I want the impact to be? And I really believe, we've only really touched on the health journey of the challenges that I've faced in my life, but there have been many. And I think I just got to this place of recognizing that I really had a purpose here, and turning my pain into purpose was a really big part of my own vision. And connecting to that vision and connecting to my why and connecting to what I'm building and creating in this lifetime matters more to me than people pleasing. And it's, to your point, simple but not easy. It was a really hard paradigm for me to break up with, and it still creeps up in a lot of different ways. But I think, I feel really fortunate to have incredible relationships in my life. And I think part of that is people understanding what I'm up to and giving me grace that I'm not always going to be available. And this shift in our relationships, and actually this summer has been a really big mirror for me of my own growth, and a really big season of integration, because it's the first time I'm back in Toronto in a long period of time, for a long time. Like, it's been almost 3 years since I've been here for an indefinite period. And so I'm reintegrating into some of my old communities. And the reflection that I keep getting is how much I've changed. And that change requires patience and a willingness on both parties to be okay with what the change means for the relationship. And I had someone, my coach, who I love and adore, reflect back for me on our call last week, where she said, it's interesting that when people are sitting in a season of wanting the old me back or missing the old version of me, it's because who I was for them was somebody that met their needs. And so in the process of me changing and shifting and prioritizing my own vision above, the immediate yes, and therefore showing up the way that everybody's used to me showing up, it requires them to start to fill their own needs for themselves. And that as we know, that can be tough, and it requires us to do some work that we don't always want to do. And so it's been it's not an easy shift, and like I said, they're relationships that I deeply value, but it has been an interesting process of just navigating how to tell people that they're still important to you and say no when I used to say yes.
Totally. And even as you're saying that, I'm like, and also what an opportunity for their soul's evolution of growth, right? Around doing the work, but recognizing like you too can do this for yourself. You have that within you.
Yeah, I hope so. I think part of my why is to give permission to other people to live the life that they want to live. Like, I think, there's especially, women in this society, there's this belief that being selfish is the worst thing and putting ourselves first is the worst thing that we could possibly do. And so people are willing to get sick and be stressed out and just, pulled in many different directions above feeling their best and filling their own cups first. And I love this idea that we actually don't give from a full cup, we only give from overflow. And so, we should be giving from a saucer, not from a cup ever. And I really think that the way that I've chosen to live my life, and one of the reflections that I've been getting more and more in recent years, is like, I want to do it. I want to do it how you're doing it. And the foundation and like the starting piece, and I think the most simple way that I can say it is really making sure that I'm only giving from a place of overflow. And it's not always easy, because there is a lot of disappointment that I now face on the other side. So, there's a lot of gain in being the yes person, and the reflection always being, I'm amazing and I show up for people and I'm everything for everyone. And I think what I'm connecting to and realizing is that there's actually, to your point, there's more learning available for them through my no. And that hopefully I'm giving them permission to choose to live a life for them as well.
So it's not just about saying yes or no to something that's in alignment or not in alignment with you. That obviously needs to happen, and that's a huge framework. But then you got to go even deeper than that. And I'd love to unpack a few what I'm going to call fun boundaries. Okay. Like I always I try to think sometimes as you and I are talking, what's the counter? What's the question that people are saying? Okay, like I hear you, T. I'm saying yes to things that are like in alignment with me, and then I'm saying no. But what is the structure around that as well? And so boundaries is a huge thing. And I would say you and I are both pretty good queens at setting boundaries. You probably take the crown a little bigger than mine on it. And there's some fun boundaries that you introduced into what you call the summer of love. And I would love to unpack some of these, from your 72-hour rule, voice notes even. And I think we should even go into like navigating our phones, like, because you and I are similar. We do it differently in some ways, but we are similar. And I think that this framework sets up the structure, like when you start talking about boundaries, and it becomes so much more enjoyable in this whole process. So over to you.
Well, for starters, I love that you're using the word fun and boundaries together. I love that you celebrate my boundaries. And I think this is an example of what's possible in relationship. Like there are a lot of people that have problems with my boundaries. And so it means a lot to me that you get it and you respect them. And, you know, boundaries are there for me. They're not there for other people to like and be okay with. So you know, their response to my boundaries has nothing to do with my boundaries as far as I'm concerned. But it is nice to have them respected. And as I said, to have the word fun, attached to them. We'll start with the 72-hour rule. So yes. Like I said, I'm really fortunate. I have incredible relationships in my life, and I have a lot of people who I love and adore, and being connected deeply, especially one-on-one, is really important to me. And that requires a lot of time. And what I found previously is that my biggest source of stress would be the fact that I didn't feel like I had enough time, and that I was overcommitted, and I wasn't able to be fully present where I was. And that, when I really looked at my social calendar, it wasn't coming from a place of my commitment to my health or my commitment to my work. It was coming from a place of being overcommitted socially. And so, you know, there was a version of me, 2014, that we're talking about where, and many years after that, where if I had a 5-minute gap in my calendar, I would fill it with a coffee. Like if you wanted to make a plan with me, it was like, okay, 3 months from now, I'm available for 2 hours on a Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And
it's not kidding.
Yeah. Like yeah. At the same time, I'm talking about the fact that I want to call in love and I want a partner, and I just didn't have space for a lot of the things that I wanted in my life. And so it's been a gradual evolution. I mean, there was a time where Tuesday nights were my night, and I put in there like Tanya time. And so if I went to go cancel Tanya time to put a new plan in, it was at least an intentional act of knowing that I was removing the 1 hour that I gave myself a week, which now just feels ridiculous. So it's been a really slow evolution to getting here. But when I came home, I've been living in Costa Rica for 18 of the last 24 months with you as my house partner. When I came home this summer, I came home back to Toronto in a very intentional way. And I knew that I didn't want to just come back into an old environment as an old version of myself. A lot had changed in my life since the last time I lived here full time. And I wanted to do it with great intention. And part of that was implementing a 72-hour rule for my social life. So what that means is that I don't plan anything socially more than 72 hours in advance. And it really allowed for a few things. One, a new relationship that I had been calling in and actually finally had the space for. It allows for me to feel so deeply into whether I'm a full body yes. And if I'm not a full body yes, then I'm a hell no. And that's another thing that I've started to really understand, that like when I waffle and I'm like, yeah, that sounds kind of interesting. It's like, I always regret saying yes unless I'm a full body yes. And having that 72-hour rule allows for me to feel so fully into that, so that I can show up so fully and really use whatever the opportunity is that's happening as an opportunity to fill my cup, as opposed to for it to be depleting. The thing that's been really cool for me through this process is the powerful reminder that we teach people how to treat us. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing for me how quickly the people in my life have learned about my 72-hour rule. And so now when I get invitations, often they start with, hey, it's within your 72-hour window. Are you free? Or it's, I know it's outside of your 72-hour window, but this might require some advanced planning. Would you be available? Would you consider coming? So it's been really neat to see that, you know, we really do teach people how to treat us. And it's a big change from the version of me that a lot of people knew when I was last living here.
It's a massive change. And I think, you know, it really provides you with a lot of freedom. Like there's a lot of weight that also gets lifted off. And, you know, how many people we know in life, even myself included, right? Like sometimes you'll be on a Saturday and, you know, you call up a friend and you're like, you want to meet up for coffee? And you meet up for coffee. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, do you want to just actually go for like a drive? And you find yourself like on a lake exploring something. And you're like, wow, this was such an incredible day. And why is it so incredible? Because it was spontaneous. It was in the moment. And actually the 72-hour rule, I've never really thought about this until right now, like as we're talking. You actually bring that spontaneous back into your life, which is the fun, which actually goes back to the fun boundaries, because, you know, you're actually bringing more fun into your life versus, and that freedom of seeing like your calendar clear from a social commitment standpoint, and everything just gets to be fun. Mm-hmm. Right? It's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, summer 2023 was my favorite summer, and exactly the 72-hour rule was the catalyst for everything that you're describing. I got to be spontaneous. I got to say yes to last minute invitations. I saw more people than I probably would have otherwise, because I could really just dial into like what was available for me in any given moment with, you know, a vast array of people doing different things. And yes to last minute cottage invitations, like things that normally require so much planning. And it all got to feel really freeing and really fulfilling.
I love it.
I think we can move on from this topic until we talk about voice notes. I think it's a real thing. It's a real thing. First off, you know, let's break down the phone first, because you want to create more time and you want to create more space in your life. It is absolutely vital that you clean up the number one distractor in your life, right? And for me, I've actually had my phone on silent since 2015. This is like the notifications, and you had a 2014 year for your life in the catalyst of transformation. For me, 2014 was the hardest year of my life. And so there was a lot of trauma going on for me. And every time my phone went off, that dinging, I had so much anxiety. I had so much anxiety going through my body and stress. So I was like, for me, it started around like, how can I alleviate some of this stress? And I was like, wow, bring silence into my day. So that was the first thing, as I made my phone go completely silent. But still, how many people, you know, look at their phone and they have all these red notifications, which just takes you out of a present moment, any moment. And so, you know, I know you did something very similar, and you know, on my end, I still don't. Like, I have my phone's on silent, not even vibration. Like, my phone will never buzz. It's on silent permanently. The only thing that gets through is my alarm in Costa Rica. That's it. The alarm goes off. I was like, okay, that one can come through, but everything else is on silent. And also my notifications. I don't get notifications for new emails, Instagram, any of that stuff. The only thing I have on there is on WhatsApp, believe it or not. But it's only one app for me.
you introduced, let's start, because it started with you cleaning up your phone, deleting some apps, changing the configuration of your phone, and then you got really bold. You got even more bold, okay? We're going to talk about it because I'm a voice note queen. So let's start with you first and the parameters, the boundaries that you put on your phone.
Sure. So to your point, I became really aware of the impact on my nervous system every time my phone would go off. You know this, and last summer was a really intense summer. There was just a lot of trauma that I was dealing with, and often when I was receiving phone calls and messages that were incoming, they were messages and conversations that would just spike my nervous system, and it would take me often days to recover. And I think the hangover of what that did in my body every time I got a notification really followed me into the fall. And so last October, I was back in Costa Rica and I was starting to heal from the traumatic summer that I had. And I noticed that I was a slave to my phone, as opposed to my phone being there for me to use. It was completely using me. And so I knew I needed to do something radical. And so there's that word again. And so I turned off every single notification on my phone. And my phone also lives on Do Not Disturb. So there are a few people who can bypass that setting, but for the most part, it's up to me. And when I pick up my phone, it's a moment of intention, and I know that, like, okay, I'm going in there to see what's in there, as opposed to people being able to access me 24/7. And that access is really what felt really overwhelming. And so it started with turning off all notifications from every single app, and then it also required me to get really comfortable with the fact that I didn't need to respond to everything and that everything wasn't urgent. And so the relationship that I had to my phone before I made this conscious choice last fall was that if I got a message, I would read it and respond right away. It's such a byproduct of the world that we live in. It's like we get an email, and because we've hit send, we assume that the other person owes us a response immediately. And so I became really comfortable slowly. And I can tell you that this was an extremely uncomfortable process for me, and part of letting go of the people-pleasing paradigm that we've alluded to on here already, but was getting really comfortable with slow response times. And so now if I get a text message from somebody, depending on what's going on with me and, what's going on and the urgency of that message, I might take hours, I might take days to respond. And again, in keeping with the theme that we teach people how to treat us, I think people are starting to recognize that this has nothing to do with my love for somebody else or the quality of our relationship, and entirely to do with where I'm at and what I'm dealing with and my capacity for, a really present and full response. So that was the beginning of it. And then this voice note piece that we're laughing about, because Shay, for those of you who follow her, know her, is the voice note queen. Shay loves a voice note, loves sending voice notes, receiving voice notes, communicating in the form of voice note, I think, is Shay's love language. And for me, I don't respond to voice notes anymore. So
you used to. So she was also a queen of them.
Yeah. And what happened for me is I just, for some reason, I find them to be a very invasive form of communication. The fact that someone can send you an 11-minute voice note and just send it and drop it in and then expect a response, I think is a boundary that I'm no longer willing to engage with. I don't like that you can't see the context of a message. And so when you get a voice note, you have no idea if it's celebrating an incredible win for somebody or if they're experiencing, some traumatic event.
Yeah.
And on the other side of what I went through last summer and recognizing actually how sensitive my nervous system is, and the fact that I'm in a season post last summer of, healing my nervous system and really taking care of what I need and what's true for me before other people, is not taking on the energy of the unknown. And I'm an empath. For those of you listening who follow human design. I'm a projector. I'm an undefined projector, which means that I really absorb energy and the experience of other people as my own, oftentimes more intensely and sensitively than they are experiencing it themselves. And so the more that I've learned about myself in this way, the more I've come to understand that like being 300 pounds was actually partially because I was just absorbing so much energy around me. And it was my body, like it had to grow in order to hold all of what I was holding. And so part of my, commitment to my physical health and my mental health is making sure that I'm okay first. And that means learning more about the way that I'm wired and what's actually healthy for me to take on. And, it's been such a delicate dance because I love the people in my life. I love deeply. I value my relationships above all else in my life. Learning to say yes to me, this is one of those ways that I have to say no to other people. And so I can't tell you, I could open up my phone and have a look, but I have a number of unread messages and unlistened to voice notes because it's just no longer a way of communication that I'm available for.
Conversations like this just light me up. And I hope you're loving today's episode too. My friend, can I ask a quick favor of you? Could you please hit the subscribe or follow button? You have no idea how much that helps this show grow, so discussions like this can reach others as well. And if you want to go the extra mile, please leave a review. Your thoughts and feedback mean so much to me. After all, this show is created for you. Okay, that's it. Let's get back to it. I actually really love this conversation because you and I both, and we haven't even talked about real estate, which, at some point we'll get to, but Tanya was in commercial real estate, which is much more rigid, cold, hard, in your head, about the numbers, like give me the bottom line, male dominant industry, time is money, money is time. Whereas like residential real estate is just emotional around everything I just said. So there's a lot more emotion, right? And you're dealing typically with more women, which also when you talk about your phone and expecting a response time is slightly higher. I'm not going to say in demand. It's more nagging sometimes. And sorry to my women, I love you, but that's just the reality between male and female. And, I hear sometimes people like, I can almost hear what people are saying, like, oh, I could never do this because like my life will fall apart. And I think about the industries we both have come from and both are in. And when you really set these type of boundaries, it becomes so freeing for you. And once you do it a little bit, you understand and you see deals still come together. The offers still get done. The phone calls eventually get answered. People get the response. Like if you are dying and it's seriously urgent, let me tell you, somebody will figure out how to reach you, right? There will be multiple people trying to get a hold of you if it's seriously that urgent. But we create this narrative in our head, and you talked about this earlier, around if I send out an email, it means I should get a response right away. So we have this narrative that everything is in instant time. We want it now. It should have been done yesterday. And it creates this stress that continues to build in your body and in your nervous system. And so when you alleviate that, again, you're creating this more time for yourself, this freedom as well. And when you communicate that to other people, to know that's how they choose to operate, and you've said it many times, we teach people how to treat us. You and I have done our own dance in the voice note realm. It's like in the beginning, sometimes it was like hard and I'd be like, I send her a voice note and then a text afterwards being like, shit, I didn't mean to send you a voice note. This is what it says, or if I don't get a response within what I'm going to call Tanya's and my normal communicative patterns, I'm like, did I send her a voice note? Maybe I sent her a voice note and that's why she's not responding to me, and it's not because it's about me. To your point, what you said, it's not about me. It's because of on your side, not knowing what's in there. And I had one other friend of mine who, before you, he was like, I hate voice notes. Like, they're so irritating. But he never unpacked it for me. He just said they're so annoying. Like, I don't want to listen to the voice note. I'm like, well, you're making my life so much more complicated and less efficient just because you don't want to. Like, and we kind of like, we're like brother and sister. So we kind of like nitpicked about it. And it wasn't until you came into my life and, you know, as you were on your own growth journey in this, when you had decided that, I'm like, okay, like hold the phone, quite literally, time out, explain to me why. And he had a very similar answer to you. I went back to him and I said, could you just explain it? I've never asked you to explain your reason. That is annoying for me. Okay. And, you know, to your guys' point, you don't know if within that voice note, it's happy, sad, somebody yelling at you, joyful. And that's the uncertainty of like, I don't know if I want to invest my energy into that, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I offer it to people. I think it's a really, and even now for me, I'll just say as a voice noter, okay? Didn't know there was such a term, but we're making it right now. If I send a voice note, sometimes, not to Tanya, I don't do it to Tanya, but I actually have started to include the context in which the voice note contains. If it's time sensitive, if it's urgent, needs an answer, and what it's about, right? Like whatever it is, but I give context around that. There's also that beautiful tool that is still a little more work for me, but I'm willing to do it, where you do the voice to text. You can just do the voice to text, you know? And so I love these boundaries, and I really appreciate you like sharing this, because I think these are simple, smaller tools that actually have massive impact on our everyday life and our mental health.
Yes to both of those things. And I think, you know, the direction I was going to go in here with talking about these boundaries is like, you're up to big things. I'm up to big things. We're living a life of impact where we have really committed to, you know, living in a way that a lot of people don't in order to have a life that a lot of people don't. And it requires a lot from us. And one of the things that I'm deeply committed to in the process of setting big goals and going after them is that I want the process of going after the goal to feel as good as having the goal itself. Like, I'm not interested in living a life for the finish line, as I use that analogy with the half marathon training, but yeah. I'm in the process of opening Trove, our first location in Toronto. And I know deeply that this belief of like, I'll be happy when doesn't exist. And that the way that I'm living my life in the process of building it is me living my life. And my life is right now. And so realizing that is why these micro boundaries matter. And I've been able to stay committed to them because they help me feel so good in the process of building and creating. And how I feel in the process of building and creating matters to me, and it matters to the end result that I'm working towards. And so I think, coming back to sort of the beginning of this conversation around the importance of a vision and being able to hold on to something bigger, it's like, how I feel every single day matters. And therefore, what I do every single day matters. And what I don't do every single day influences how I feel. And therefore, it matters too.
Amazing. Like, seriously, that you need to let that sink in. I almost want you to say it again. Like, it's so good. Well, they can rewind it. So definitely go back 15 seconds and listen to that again, because it is so powerful. And there's so much more joy actually that you bring into your life, because what is the point of being miserable in the process to get to the end? And it really, what is the end?
Yeah.
Right. Like, especially for people, if you do have vision and you know what you're going after, the closer you get to achieving that goal, you're a dreamer. You're going to stack on top of that. You're going to have new visions, new challenges, new heights, new goals, new ideas that you're going to be like, oh my God, as soon as we crush that, we're going to pause and celebrate that. Because I know you're really into honoring that moment and being present in that moment, but you're already on to the next. Mm-hmm. So imagine having your journey always being, I don't want to say miserable, but for some it is. but not being able to actually truly enjoy the process and the journey that you're on, because really, what is the end?
Mm-hmm.
It should be always evolving. It should be
Mm-hmm.
always kind of moving in front of you as something that you're eagerly chasing, and you're enjoying the growth and the stretching of trying to obtain this end that never actually comes.
Yeah, it's so cliche, right? But it really is about the journey.
Yeah.
One of the things that's coming up for me as we're talking about this is that we live, this isn't new, but it's always so interesting for me, and it's a reflection that I get back so often. We live in a society where we celebrate busy, and it's like the golden standard. It's like everybody is just obsessed with like, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. And that is one of the things that I have broken up with. And the way that I've chosen to live my life, and this all ties into not being a slave for my phone and the 72-hour rule, is breaking up with busy and creating more space in my life than I have ever had. So the way that I move through my day is incredibly slowly and incredibly intentionally. And I love when I run into people, and I can't tell you, this reflection is probably 98% of the people in my life. When they see me, they're like, I know you're so busy, ... And I'm like, it's really interesting perception. Like I've never been so not busy, and therefore I've never had more space to dream and create and fall in love and have the summer of love, like you talked about at the opening, and have fun and be spontaneous. And it's really in breaking up with busy. And I think this is maybe moving us in a different direction, but it's really what's alive for me in this moment is like, what are you willing to do? And this was a question that I asked myself so much, in order to actually enjoy the experience of my life.
Yeah. I love it.
One of the things that I've come to understand is like, it's actually so rare that people give themselves permission and space to ask themselves the question, what do you want?
Yeah.
And even more rare to actually go after the thing that you want. Mm-hmm. And so it's part of what I love about our relationship and our friendship so much is being surrounded by like-minded people who are asking themselves the big questions and living really meaningful and impactful lives.
So T, let me ask you something, because as I hear you sharing this, I'm going, well, where's the practicality? Where is the actual tangible tools? Because if I'm going to take things off my plate, and I'm also like 3 words you will always hear me talking about is automate, delegate, and eliminate. And a lot of it, of the busyness that people think I'm so busy, could be simply eliminated, right? You don't know why you're doing it. It's because you've always done it. It actually doesn't go in alignment with your vision and what you're working towards once you're clear on that. So there's a good portion that could just be eliminated. But then there's other stuff, and guys, I promise you we are going to get to this, because I definitely want to talk about what Trove is. It is not, we're talking about the world's newest landmark. That is not a little drop. That's not it's not a small fortress. Like it's huge what you're building. And so when I think about freeing up time in my life and being less busy, that also means you have to have systems, team, people in place for support that actually allows for that to happen. And so I would love for you to just share, what are some of those tools, systems, maybe it is people that you have in place in your life that actually also support for that framework of non-busyness to exist?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I'll say is in relation to what I've alluded to on here before, which is I think that we are, especially as women, we're so wired to take care of everyone else in our lives, and to, it's a term that I've come to understand called overcare, where we take on other people's needs as our own. And so the very first thing that I had to do was, and let me tell you, this is not an easy process, but it has been one of the hardest things and one of the biggest rewards in my life, is ending codependency in my life and recognizing that I'm actually not responsible for anybody else's health and happiness. And the only thing that I can control is the way that I show up in relationships. And so that was the very first. It was like, where am I in overcare? Where am I worrying about other people and other people's health and well-being in a way that actually isn't serving me or them. So that was first and foremost, and that cleared up more time and energy than anything else in my life. The second is a much more like concrete, tangible thing. And I know you talk a lot about this, and it was creating a calendar that was absolutely in service of me. And so I've time blocked my calendar. I have every single morning until at least 11 a.m. blocked off for myself. And so that means that before the first meeting I'm willing to take with anybody else starts at 11 a.m. And before that, I'm focusing on moving my body. And every day looks a little bit different, but I sit for an hour on my balcony with my coffee without my phone. What a luxury, right? And a luxury that I implemented when I was working in commercial real estate, and I had to be at my desk at 8 a.m. And so what that meant at that time in my life is that I had to wake up at 5 a.m. And I, again, was willing to do that. So I'm creating a life now where I have a little bit more flexibility in my schedule, and it doesn't necessarily need to happen at 5 a.m. Sometimes it does. But I give myself an hour to just not even meditate, but to think and to be, to move my body, sometimes to meditate, sometimes to journal, sometimes to breathe. And by the time I sit down at 11 a.m., I'm like so full because I have given myself that time with myself. And then between 11 and 5, I have, different days look different. I've got specific days that are blocked out for Trove team meetings, for individual Trove work, for days to build TKO coaching and to do client calls, for days for me to be a client on calls with my coach. So there's this beautiful balance of head down work time, collaborative work time, learning time, coaching time. And I get to surrender to my calendar because I've built it with such incredible intention.
It is. It's so important. I mean, yes, like you already said, like I talk about this a lot, do you run your calendar or does your calendar run you? And really looking at that, the other tangible thing for me that came out is around not being afraid to be asking for help. Like I always say, the coaches need coaches, right? And so having other people in your life that you pay, you literally are paying them because they are helping guide you. They're your support, their structure that are also in your life. And I think a lot of people have a perspective that it can seem weak or like, I don't want to say shameful, but for some people it is, I think even when you interchange the word like therapist to coach, and there are therapists who are coach, and then there's therapists that's just therapists. But when you switch that framework to thinking like this is my coach, no different than like every athlete has a coach, every strong person in business also has a coach, a nutrition coach. Like you look at athletes, they have literally a coach for every single sector in their life.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought this in here. I mean, I am who I am and where I am today because of the work that I have done with coaches throughout my life. And a lot of the changes that you've seen firsthand that I've made since meeting you just over a year ago are the result of the coach that I'm currently working with. And so it's bringing into that space, like I feel like a slave to my phone. I'm really busy. I feel socially extended. My nervous system, like goes into panic when I hear a bing on my phone. And it's like, who is the person that's going to help you create the structure with your calendar, the boundaries with your phone to support you as you make changes that have an often negative impact for other people around you, and to be okay with it. And it is through my work with my coach that I am able to say all of what I'm saying here, and for it to be true about how I choose to live my life right now. And I can tell you that, the next place that I wanted to get to around like attracting the people that we get to in order to be who we are and also build what we're building. Like the thing that I'm most blown away by with Trove is the quality of the people that we have attracted to build this vision. And to your point, and I appreciate that you see it so clearly, it is the world's newest wellness landmark. And we have a massive vision. And it is impossible for My co-founder and I both independently had this vision. We came together and we've, put one step in front of the other the entire time since we had that vision almost 2 years ago. But it would not exist without an incredible team of brilliant people who are best in class at what they do and incredibly dedicated to our vision. And so it is, to your point, it's also recognizing that like nothing that we do is a one-man show. And part of what makes this experience of building Trove so juicy is the fact that we get to share this vision with other people who have totally bought into it and want to see it come to life as badly as we do. And letting, one of the things that I'm learning about myself as a CEO is like, I'm not interested in micromanagement at all. And I'm not, in a position of hiring people so that I can sit there and look over their every move. Like,
totally.
What building requires so many people to help us build this thing. And so it would actually be impossible for me to be following around each person that we've hired and double check their work and make sure that it's of quality. Like, not for me, not for Trove, not now, not ever.
100%.
And so the way that we lead is really empowering our team to come to us, like to really step into their zones of genius and for us to learn from them. And I have made it a sport, making sure that I am in a room surrounded by people who are far better at what they do than what I could ever do and who are far smarter than I am. And it is such a gift and a privilege to watch Trove come to life in the way that it is.
Perfect segue. T, what is Trove and what is the vision?
Trove is a holistic wellness center. We're opening the doors to its first location in downtown Toronto in the next few months. I, as you alluded to on here, had a life as a corporate professional in commercial real estate, and my co-founder is a former litigator, worked at one of the large law firms. We were both busy corporate professionals who became absolutely obsessed with wellness, mostly to support us through how demanding our jobs were. And what we realized in the process of chasing best-in-class practitioners to support us is that they were scattered all over the city. And a lot of the practices that we know to be true, that we know to be really supportive for our nervous systems and our overall well-being, are actually really difficult to access. And so we're bringing together all sorts of healing modalities, best-in-class practitioners, and we're providing it in one single space, one-stop shop for your wellness. And so we're bringing together naturopaths, osteopaths, massage therapists of all different kinds. We're starting with traditional RMT, lymphatic drainage massage, Reiki. We've got a studio space, and so we'll be doing breathwork classes, meditation classes, restorative Indian yoga, sound baths, a private sauna, cold plunge studio space, red light therapy. We're creating a meditation experience in a salt cave. We've got a journal lounge, a huge IV lounge. We'll be offering hypnotherapy and coaching and therapy, and really just an integrative mind, body, soul approach to wellness.
Like, who does not want to be a part of this? It's going to be so freaking badass. I cannot wait to walk through these doors. I'm a self-proclaimed Trove ambassador.
Oh, yeah. We feel it, and we're so lucky to have your support. And I think the last thing that I'll say about it is that we're offering this in a really, really elevated setting. And so you'll feel like you're walking into a spa, but you'll be getting scientific results that we know are really there, that are nourishing and replenishing and just really good for your overall mental and physical health. I mean, our tagline that I'm really excited about, which kind of summarizes the whole Trove experience, is where science meets magic.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, you will, our promise is that you will walk out feeling better than when you walk in. And, one of the things that I think Zoe, my co-founder, and I are so committed to is, we don't want lawyers to be leaving law, and we don't want commercial real estate professionals to be leaving commercial real estate, and we don't want doctors to be leaving the medical profession and teachers to be leaving teaching. Like, these are all really important jobs, and it is required actually that people, feel well enough to want to stay in their professions. And we're facing a moment in time where burnout rates have never been as high as they are. And so one of our missions is really to support people so that they can continue going out into the world and delivering their own magic. And so that's really the mission behind all of this, is like, there are jobs that are just going to be higher stress than others that are going to require more people. And we want to make sure that those individuals are really filling their own cups. And so whether you're, a mom or a new mom, or whether you're on a fertility journey, or whether you are a corporate professional, as I said, medical professional, all of these things, we hope that you will come to us to let us take care of you so that you can go out there and do the thing that you are meant to do so, so well out in the world.
So empowering. And like, doesn't it just sound like you're at a retreat in the city? That's what I think. I'm like, how nice to be able to come and have essentially a staycation, feel empowered, new visions, everything. Just like it's gonna be magic, like you said.
Well, you're saying you're an unofficial ambassador, but you're about to become a full-on ambassador, because one of the services that we're actually offering is a full in-city retreat. And our slogan for that is stay in the city, feel off the grid. And it's because we've had the privilege of spending time in Costa Rica and living in a place that a lot of people go to retreat to. But retreats, overnights, week-longs are not always available for people. And we want to make sure that they have a place close to home where they can come in and give themselves, even if it's an 8-hour retreat, to just be so taken care of and filled up. And then, as I said, walk out those doors and go back into the world to do the thing that they're meant to be doing.
I love it. Well, in the show notes, we're going to plug in everything. I know you guys have a very growing email list as well, to be first to know when the Trove doors open, to get the invitations if you are in Toronto listening, or you find yourself in Toronto once the doors will be opening. So make sure to connect with Tanya on that. You also just launched a new special program. I'd love for you to share that with people, because I just think it's so needed. Your gifts are so needed. So what did you just launch?
Oh, thanks for asking that and for reflecting that back. The program is called Transformation by TKO. I, for a number of years, was an underground health coach, and my health coaching has sort of had its own transformation. And now I call myself a transformation coach, because people come to me for everything from, health coaching, weight loss coaching, to mindset coaching, to how to pivot careers, really how to set goals and go after big things, business, leadership, all of it. So transformation feels all encompassing. And so one of the things that I launched is actually a self-guided 6-month program called Transformation by TKO. It is really the culmination of all of the tools, resources that I have had access to over the course of the last almost 8 years on my own journey. And, one of the things that you and I talk about often is just how privileged I am to be as privileged as I am. Over the course of navigating, trauma and mental illness and physical illness, I had access to an unbelievable amount of resources. And so in the course of my treatment over the years, have worked with therapists and hypnotherapists and coaches and dietitians and naturopaths, trainers. And I really wanted this information to become accessible, easily digestible for people who want to go through their own transformation journey. And so I became a health coach in the process, and everything that I've learned through my own journey, and mostly through my lived experience, I've put into a course that you can take yourself through. And I've chosen a very intentional price of $197, because I really feel like this is, my way of giving back to people from a place of incredible privilege on this journey.
I love that. Let me ask you one final question. You're on the Freedom CEO podcast for all the obvious reasons. So when you think about being the CEO of your life, not of your business, how has owning your decisions brought you freedom?
I think my answer to that question is, it brings me back to the beginning of this conversation where we were talking about radical responsibility.
Yeah.
And choosing to see my life through the lens of everything happening for me and not to me. And knowing deeply that I am a co-creator of my reality. And so I get to live a life of incredible intention. And that means that wherever I am, I choose to be so fully. It allows for me to be incredibly present. And the space that I've given myself by owning my calendar and owning my life and being the CEO of my life allows for space to ask the questions like, what do I want? And make sure that I am always moving in a direction that I want to be moving in, that is of value for both me and everybody around me.
I love it. I love it. And I love you so much. I'm so grateful for you and appreciate you giving us your time today to come on the podcast to just deliver so much value, so much goodness. And obviously you're going to be back.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for being a champion of all things that I'm birthing in the world. And congratulations on this podcast. I got to be behind the scenes on our kitchen counter, watching it come to life and hearing you film the intro and doing the graphics and all of it. So it's so cool for me to be able to be here with you in this way on this platform.
Thank you, babe. So grateful for your support. Love you too. Come on. How good was that conversation? We all need more of this in our lives, don't we? If today's episode got you stirring a little bit in your seat, that's probably the nudge you need to start making some powerful changes in your life. If you don't know where to start, you need help with the framework, or simply you just need accountability, then I invite you to join my Made for More Mastermind. We start October 10th with 8 Freedom Foundation fundamentals that will be the catalyst to create change and give you permission to live the way you want to show up in this world. Each week, over 8 weeks, we will dive into a new Freedom Foundation, giving you the roadmap and integration tools you need to end 2023 strong with clarity and intention, feeling unstuck and empowered to step into 2024. Head over to thefreedomceo.com for all the details and to secure your spot. I cannot wait to see you on October 10th as we kick it off. Thanks for tuning into the Freedom CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review, as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shane Vidiata and the Freedom CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.